Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Chris McElwain. I'm joined by Sean Conley and Liam Carrigan. I'm very sorry to have to report, as I'm sure you're all aware, that we have lost the League Cup final, 3-1 to St Mirren. We'll do what we should do, which is congratulate St Mirren on their cup victory. It's fair play to them; they did their job. But we are here to talk about Celtic, so we'll focus on that now. Look, two things I want to mention before we start, lads, and I'm going to talk directly to the commenters here. First of all, if I see any infiltrators, I will ban them. So don't worry, I will try and catch them as much as I can. If you see anybody, then let me know, because we want to make sure that we've just got the Celtic fans on here as much as possible. Secondly, just a couple of things. Remember, we've just watched exactly what you guys have watched, so let's try and keep things respectful as much as we can. And I will try and bring up as many of your comments as possible, but all I'd ask is, look, despite the emotion, try and keep the language, just moderate if you can. And we'll get as many of your thoughts in as possible. Sean, I'll come to you first. Again, appreciate you and Liam coming in at this late hour to talk about that. I know it's very late where you both are. How did we lose that final? Where did it go wrong for us over the course of the 90 minutes?
Yeah, like we were pretty weak defensively. We we conceded a goal after 90 seconds. Without touching, we touched the ball, we didn't complete a pass. So 90 seconds without really doing anything. So you're really under gun at that point. But we actually responded well, despite the fact that Mirren could have went 2-0 up at that early stage. We did respond, missed a few chances, 3 good chances, I think, and then score one, a great finish from Hatate. And we're very much in the ascendancy in that point, dominating the game. And then about 10 minutes before half time, Nacho pulls up with a hamstring injury. And we don't create any more chances in the first half, but that's after that. And then in the second half, we do absolutely nothing, to be honest. We draw one save that I can remember out of the goalkeeper, and that's a Colby Donovan shot from about 30 yards. So I don't really remember anything else that the St goalkeeper had to do at that point. At the other end of the pitch, in the first half, we looked solid on the right hand side and absolutely wide open on the left hand side. Scales getting dominated physically and in terms of strength and pace. Tierney obviously playing as left winger, so he was just further up. So I'm not going to blame him for the defending, but he wasn't helping in a sense. On the opposite side, we were fine on the right hand side, and I guess that was true throughout. All 3 St Mirren goals came from, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but from actually no, sorry, they didn't change it, but yeah, in the first half that was the case anyway, and then in the second half, we offered nothing, and then defensively we were passive. Like the first St Mirren goal of the second half comes from, was it a long ball? And it was just, there's trust. Sorry, the first one is Trusty gives up possession real cheap in a really dangerous area, and it's just a chip ball into the box. Schmeichel comes, but he comes late. I don't know if that's his ball or not, but there's no defenders anywhere near the striker either. So it's basically, your man's he can chip the ball into the box without any pressure, 30 yards out. And then it's a free header from 10 yards out, again, without any pressure. So if that's a pass and a header at goal without anyone anywhere near any of them. So that's I don't know. Like, is that to do with the system? I don't know what the problem is there. And then the final goal, the nail in the coffin, it starts up the opposite end of the pitch and is absolutely weak pressure. Like, cause we're supposed to be part of our identity is supposed to be forward pressure, and it's absolutely weak from up front. Johnny Kenny just strolling, and it just long ball up the pitch, and the result of that is that Declan John, who is deemed not even good enough to play for Sevco, turns a Celtic player inside. Trusty gets drawn in, and it just squares the ball for a tap in. And
it was far too easy.
All 3 goals were weak, really weak defending, and we said at half time, even the goals, even aside from the goals, we looked weak and vulnerable at various different times. It wasn't just the 3 goals. There was times where Scales was one-on-one with Lindulu and he just fell over. There was times where we were passing it straight to the St Mirren player. There was, it was, we do not look defensively organised. If I'm trying to find positives, we created more chances than we have in certainly in the first half, excuse me. We created a lot of chances relative to any other St Mirren game we've had in the last year. And at halftime, I was feeling relatively positive. It was one each. We'd been the dominant team. But then we just did nothing second half. And I just struggle to believe that our team, our performance can hinge so badly on having a focal striker of talent, because it seems like the difference between having Iheanacho and Kenny was precipitous. That as soon as Nacho went off, we just stopped functioning as a team. And this is Nancy's third game, and it was the first time it looked like the players kind of knew what they were supposed to be doing. But then when Iheanacho went off, it wasn't that they stopped knowing what they were doing. It was that the focal point of the game just was removed from the game. It was like playing with 10 men. Kenny could not play that role that Nancy required for his system. So therefore the system just fell apart at that point. And then when the subs came on, it fell apart even more, because the players that were deemed not good enough to be starting and functioning in that system came on and sure enough did not function in that system. So things just went from bad to worse as the game progressed. Well done, St Mirren. Well-deserved win. Congratulations to Dermot Desmond, Peter Lawwell, Michael Nicholson. This one's on you. And that's 2 cup finals we've lost in 6 months. And if my facts checking is correct, someone can correct me if I'm wrong. That's the first time we've lost a cup final by more than a single goal since the 70s. And someone Partick Thistle in 1972. And someone can check me on that if I'm wrong or not.
Yep, absolutely. Liam, I think Sean makes a really good point in terms of Iheanacho. He was somebody that we spoke about at half-time that was having an impact, obviously forced off with injury. But that really, I think, highlighted just the dearth of quality that we've got in terms of our bench. We have no reinforcements. And when someone, as Sean said, that seemingly is so dependent to the way this system works, that there was no coming back from that. And listen, that's no disrespect to Johnny Kenny and what he's achieved in his career, but it's becoming more and more evident that the players who are currently at this club, a number of them, are not capable of performing at the level required as a Celtic player. The board, Dermot Desmond, took a flamethrower to Brendan Rodgers, put all the problems on Brendan Rodgers. Martin O'Neill came in, steadied the ship. Performances weren't fantastic, we've acknowledged that. But what Martin did is he came in and got results. A number of us said we felt it would be better to keep that momentum right through until post this game with Martin O'Neill. Some disagreed with that and felt get the new man in as early as possible. Now, we'll talk about the new manager and we'll talk about what this means for him going forward. But there's a real issue here that we didn't go into a European game prepared through poor recruitment. We've been left with a squad which is unfit for purpose. The blame was placed by the board onto our former manager. And now we've parachuted another manager in under the most challenging possible circumstances that he can come into this club, given the level of expectation. And the worst scenario that we spoke about, in that if he comes in, there are 3 pivotal games, 2 domestically, 1 in Europe, 1 that could have yielded silverware, and he's lost them. That was the worst case scenario for this manager coming in at the moment. How do we fix this? How do we fix this?
Right. Well, first of all, I think we need to just make it clear there's going to be all kinds of nonsense printed in the media in the next couple of days, probably the next week or so, because they're going to want to drag it out and have a good gloat. Yeah. But this is not on the manager. It is only fractionally on the players, because you can only urinate with the appendage God gives you, as they say. And, if players are not good enough to play for Celtic, that's not their fault. They've been given that opportunity and they're trying to make the best of it. But if they're not good enough, they're simply not good enough. It's no their fault. They're doing their best. A manager who will be judged after 3 games, but it's ridiculous to judge any manager after 3 games, unless he's managing at a World Cup. But it's just, like I say, all these narratives are going to come out in the next couple of days. Players that didn't turn up, manager not knowing what he was doing. It's all in the boardroom. It's all on the boardroom. Those parasites in our boardroom drain the money out of the club. They remove any fans that dare to question them, us included. Let's be honest. Acsom are part of this fan media blackout that is now happening. And ultimately, as much as I hate watching Celtic lose a cup final, there's part of me, very, very small part of me, that thinks, do you know what? This is exactly what the board deserve. It's exactly what they deserve. You reap what you sow, and they sleptwalked into the end of last season. Celtic have not had a really good, convincing performance since Bayern Munich away. It was the last time we went out and played, and like everyone's like, this is how a Celtic team should play. This is what it's all about. We staggered over the finish line in the league. We lost the cup final. This season has just been a complete aborted effort from the beginning. The manager didn't get back in the summer, so he said, hell with this, I'm off to Brazil. Can't say I blame him. Our largest shareholder, not our owner, I want to make clear, not even an executive in the club, not only does he decide to take a flamethrower to the manager, as you said, he then puts his Nepo baby of a son up in the boardroom because he's too much of a coward to face the music himself. And I know I sound like I'm having a rant here, but this needs to be said. I'm sick and tired of everybody saying it's the manager, it's the players. No, it's those clowns in suits who sit there and take our money week after week and offer nothing back except vacuous crap in the form of AI-generated statements and other nonsense.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's fair. I think the strength of feeling. A lot of folks in the comments echo that. A lot of folks, coming out in disagreement in terms of the manager. So I want to try and be as balanced as possible, Liam, because a lot of what you said I agree with, but I want to make sure we do focus on every element. Now, Sean, a lot of folks are saying this is on the manager, and we spoke at pre-match. We talked about the fact it looks as though he's changed the system based on the personnel. As it turns out, he hadn't changed the system. He had changed the personnel, but to an extent. But ultimately, it's the third game where he's stuck with the same system. Now, he's not had a lot of time with the players. I think that's important. He is coming in under challenging circumstances. I think that is context that needs to be mentioned. But does there come a point where you have to say, okay, look, it is a manager's responsibility to recognise what the players that he has at his disposal, what they're capable of, right? And if you're coming into a job, you've done a degree of requisite research to say that's how they've been playing for X amount of seasons under the previous regime. How can I expect these guys to go and suddenly do such a drastic change? And as we've found out in the last 3 games, and I think this is important, they can't. Certainly not quickly. They cannot adapt to this system because we looked so fragile, particularly at the back. I'm completely get Liam's point that I think this is a problem that's rooted very much in the summer and the lack of strategy and lack of planning. But if we just isolate the manager at the moment, surely he must recognise that this system and this formation can't go on.
Yeah, well, we assumed that we probably assumed it midweek, and we assumed it before the game today, and we assumed incorrectly. We pre-match used the word humility multiple times, giving Nancy false credit for making corrections. Turns out he hadn't. He just found the best players to fit his system, and he had, in the sense that appeared to be working for 35 minutes until Iheanacho went off, and then it just fell to pieces in every way it could. So, look, I would argue that the system, we've got our first real evidence that the system works and that well, even then that's debatable, right? The argument is that it worked and that we created more chances than we normally do against St Mirren.
Yeah.
But then the opposite is true in that we've conceded more goals we've ever conceded against St Mirren. And it just, once Iheanacho went off injured and once the sub started coming on, maybe he found the best 11 players within our squad for that system to make it work. But there was just no one beyond that 11. So that as soon as one person came out, it just was, just did not work. Would we have won if we started 4-3-3 today? Maybe. I'm not sure. We struggled in the previous games against St Mirren this season.
Yeah.
Would we have won if Martin O'Neill was in charge and we'd had 4-3-3, if we had not appointed Nancy and Martin O'Neill had been given another week and a half or whatever it is? Probably, to be honest. I'd say better chances than what eventuated based on this. I think the players did look more like they knew what they were doing, but then it's once adversity was introduced into the situation, whether they stopped knowing or stopped believing, they stopped functioning, regardless of whatever the cause of that loss of functionality was. So it was dysfunctional system, and like the squad was already thin and lacking in quality before we tried to fit it into a whole new regimen that it wasn't designed for in the first place. So it's a shambles. Liam is talking about the guys in the boardroom. Yeah, one failure can be put at a lower level, but repeated failures, that's a failure. The more failures there are, the further up the line it has to go. Like if people at the lower levels keep failing, that's not their responsibility. That's the responsibility of people higher up for keeping them in place and not correcting that. So the responsibility absolutely does travel upwards. You could say it's a little bit on Nancy, but not really because he's just in the door. But yeah, it's embarrassing, man. It's an embarrassing day. It's a sad day. Yeah, it's a historical day for all the wrong reasons. It's been a historical year for all the wrong reasons.
Yep.
It's 2 cup finals we've lost in 6 months. It's not great. It doesn't feel good, man. It feels bad, man.
No,
it feels bad.
It doesn't, and I do want to acknowledge that. There's a lot of strength of feeling coming through in the comments, and I'm going to try and bring as many up as I can. I'm going to do that just now before we come back to the guys. But again, what I would ask guys is remember, these are our opinions at the moment. There's no requirement to agree or disagree for that matter, but please keep the comments and the observations about the guys on the panel respectful, please. Okay, that's all I'm gonna ask for at the moment. But I'm going to bring up some comments, trying to get as much balance into the discussion as possible. So we'll start with David Boyle. I'm going to use this chat for the second half as a counselling session to get through this. Bear with me. Yeah. To be fair, if we can fulfil that purpose, then we'll certainly try it. As sometimes it can be good to vent, but in the aftermath of that type of performance and result, it can be difficult. Patrick, James Simpson comes in to say, regardless of manager, these players are just not good enough as a team, and that's echoed by Kay Mullen, who's coming out to say team is awful, 3 at the back, needs to change. I think that's echoed quite widely in the comments. Patrick James Simpson comes back and says, blame the board all you want. These players should be performing at a better level than they are. I mean, there's definitely responsibility, I think, that needs to go into some of the players. There were things that I observed during that match, which we'll talk about in a few moments, where I feel as though as a professional football player, and supposedly the top tier in our league at the very least, these players should be performing better at certain fundamentals. Stephen Sloan coming in this season is worse than COVID, worse than Mowbray season, worse than John Barnes season. Some company, Ben. We're a shambles from top to bottom. I think Nancy is 1 or 2 defeats away from the sack, and we will talk about that. Paddy Lavery, you come in to say we deserve nothing today, and then Combe French comes in at clubs a real shambles. Unfortunately, the board have been really shown for their total incompetence. And again, you have to remember that the failures that are happening on the park, they have to stem from somewhere, and I think that's the point that Liam's making. And I want to emphasise this, is that we've spoken and we've discussed these problems in terms of recruitment. Brendan Rodgers, spoke about needing more qualities. made statements that didn't jive with what we were seeing in terms of the transfers, the outgoings, etc. And McMahon, 67, comes in to say that, and it's an asset-stripped squad. And I think that's apt. Celtic is famous for scoring goals, and the board have ripped that out of the team. Congratulations, Desmond, Lowell, and Nicholson. And I think Paul Tisdale, given his role, is possibly responsible for that as well. Patrick James Simpson, you're back in because I think this is important, and there's a lot of this echoed in the comments. And credit to those who are Saints-worthy winners, no issue with the result. And I think we always want to pay credit to our opponents where we can. As difficult as that can be, as emotional as that can make us, and as angry as that can make us, we do want to give credit. We don't want to be known for spitting the dummy out as much as that. But Brian Hughes, you come in to say it's not working. Milk Boy, I want to come in and say, same old, let the manager off the hook for picking the team that O'Neill won with, go away. I take issue with that because, as we said, there's three of us on here. We've all given our viewpoint, and my point was, how much is this on the manager? We're discussing that at the moment. We will cover every single aspect as we can. So please don't take offence at one person's opinion. Otherwise, this format won't work. And DD, I'm hoping that's addressed to me and not Dermot Desmond. After the early goal, we started to do Wealthy and Actual up front. We had nothing after we went off. And that goes to Sean's point about the fact that it was very much a sliding doors moment. And again, you talk about the quality on the pitch, but why are we so dependent, Sean, on having one particular player? Does that take some of the heat off of the manager in the sense that if he gets a player who does seem to fit his system, does that point to the fact that he really does need to get his own players in the door for this to work?
I don't think it takes heat off him, but it does give him a bit of mitigation, a bit of an excuse, because at the end of the day, we finished the last transfer window with no strikers, and here we are, relying on a free agent signing that came in after the transfer window that was released. It was so valued by his last club that they cut him free in September, right? So that's where we're at. There's no real out here for the manager, but I don't know, like you could argue that maybe, but then why would he be appointed? Why would people who are allegedly competent directors of football, heads of football operations, appoint someone to fail, knowing that he's put him in a situation where he's going to fail? And it really appears outwardly that if nobody's said to him, like if you try and come in and reinvent football within a matter of days, when we've got games every 3 days, it's not the MLS. And I don't mean that in respect of the quality. I mean in respect of the fact that they have far fewer games to play. They have far less pressure. They have far less demanding fans, far less pressure from the media. And if he's going to come in and try and impose an ideal that may or may not be the right thing to do, that his formation and ideal may be the greatest thing ever. He may be reinventing football for the better, but so far it's not working. 3 losses out of 3, and it is an absolute shambles from our perspective. And
yep.
So, it's a multifaceted thing. Liam's talking about the board. I mentioned at halftime that the fitness coach should be getting strung out as well because of
another observation.
The repeat hamstrings. Johnston comes back off in the first half of the game. Nacho comes back off in the first half of the game. These are not just responsibilities of the manager. This is all kinds of backroom people. And, one goal gets lost, you blame the player. Cool. That same player keeps, if he makes a mistake, sorry, I should say, that same player keeps making mistakes, keeps getting a game, then you blame the manager. That manager keeps selecting that player because there's the player behind them is significantly worse, then you blame the board, right? So like that, it does, like when more mistakes happen, the more it repeats, then the further up the blame travels. That's that. Sorry, maybe disagree with me, but that's the way I see it.
Yeah,
no,
I think that's fair.
I think
Go
you're
ahead,
right. Sorry, I was just going to say you're right, Sean. The idea, look, the fitness coach in particular is one that didn't occur to me immediately, but now you say it, yeah, makes sense. But I was just going to add that all of these positions, manager, fitness coach, whatever. At the end of the day, they're hired by the people in the boardroom. So for me, it's like, you're right, but it's still the same root problem, in my opinion. It's a culture of rewarding incompetence, accepting mediocrity, and as long as we turn up and keep buying the merch, who cares? That seems to be the attitude I'm getting from what I see of the board. But I would also add, St Mirren did very, very well today. They knew exactly where and how to hit Celtic. They'd obviously done their homework, and they played to their strengths, their physicality in particular. Not in a particularly dirty way. I don't think they were committing many fouls. Well, they were committing fouls. I don't think there was many outrageous fouls, but they basically bullied us off the ball legally, and that's on us for allowing them to do that.
Did they do anything they don't normally do in a game against us? I don't think so.
That's right. Yeah, you're right. I mean, we knew that's how they would approach, and we didn't handle it, and that's where the players and the manager carry some of the blame for today's performance. Yep. But I just feel that today's performance is part of a much, much bigger... It's the latest symptom in an ongoing disease, if you want to use a medical terminology.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think that's 100% right. I'm going to get a couple more comments in. Good points from both the guys. Patrick Gerrigan comes in to say the board manager unexpressly linked. They knew he changed the system and we were winning. I'm going to come to that viewpoint in a second. I just got a few more comments. And Ian Laurie comes in to say, take it in that we let a bottom six club beat us 3-1. Actually, when you do read it like that, it's quite damning. Two comments here that I'm gonna bring up just because I think people don't necessarily quite understand how this format works. Jared Minotti comes in and say the reaction from presenter and guests to that disgraceful display is far too bland and boring. Show some passion, for goodness sake. Obviously, I didn't hear your rant, Liam, so I'm not sure exactly what more you'd like us to do, but I'm pretty sure if you'd seen any of the three of us during that match, you'd have seen plenty of passion.
I'm pretty sure you'll see some of my rant being clipped and shared on various other fans' channels tomorrow.
Quite possibly. And Mr. Stevie D, you can't say none of the three of you are at the game. Armchair Acsom. Well, I mean, it would be really impressive to see both Liam and Sean at the game today.
Work tomorrow.
Exactly. I mean, maybe worth doing a little bit of research before you make that comment. As for me, if I'm at the game, mate, there's nobody doing Acsom. So I mean, just try and replay that in your head a little bit, and you'll get to the reason fairly soon.
Who was the guy on? Was it Jimmy Sanders? Who was the guy? Were you at the game caller? That was always his thing, wasn't it?
Yes, we had the game caller. Believe me, with a closed off 20,000 person season ticket restriction, it's not for lack of trying to get to the games. But this is we do this so we can provide this content. But yeah, thank you for that observation. A lot of folks are talking about the fact we had momentum, Liam, when Martin O'Neill was here. He worked with the quality that's within this squad, and he managed to get results. We know that the performances, particularly against St Mirren, ironically enough, weren't great, but he was getting a tune. He seemed to instill some sort of belief. One thing to consider that with the new manager coming in, this is the second change in hierarchy that these players have been subjected to. So the second new approach that they've had to get used to. But what was it, do you think, when you look back at what Martin O'Neill was able to do, what was it that actually managed to get the results that maybe what does Wilfred Nancy have to do to try and get to the same level? And is it a case of maybe a little bit of recognition that this approach ain't working? And how long does he have to do that?
I think the main thing is you need to get the big personalities amongst the players fully on board with what you're about. I mean, I'm sure Callum McGregor is, as Celtic captain, I'm sure he's going to be respectful. He's going to convey the manager's message to the team, and he's not going to, at least not publicly say anything dissenting in that case. But if senior players are not buying into it, then it's not going to work. And that was the difference with Martin O'Neill, right? Callum McGregor talks about it, how he idolised Martin O'Neill. And he never dreamed that he would actually get to play in a Martin O'Neill Celtic team.
And we mentioned Luke McCowan on that front as well, if you remember.
Yep. And that's the thing. Mark O'Neill walks in and he's got that aura. He commands that instant respect. And now Wilfred Nancy has achieved a great deal outside of Europe as a coach. He has. He did very well in Canada, earned his shot at the MLS, and took a team that were 17th up to the upper echelons of the league. He did very well there, won a cup. This sounds trivial, but the problem is any manager that we sign outside of, something outrageous, like if we got Jose Mourinho or somebody, right? Someone who has managed clubs like Barcelona, Real Madrid, Juventus, whatever, right? Someone who is used to the culture of a club where you are expected to win every week. 99% of the candidates that Celtic will realistically approach for manager are not going to have a Scooby about that, right? Martin O'Neill did. Martin O'Neill understood that. And Martin O'Neill was able to put that across to the players. But even then, that has its limits, right? I will always be grateful to Martin O'Neill for what he did coming back when he did and doing what he did. But let's be honest, by the end of it, we were running on fumes. Right? Yes. We could just as easily have lost the Hearts game, the Roma game, and today, even if Martin O'Neill was still in charge. I think we'd have put up more of a fight. But I think we could still just easily have lost those 3 games because he's working with the same parts. And even if you use those parts a little bit better, there's still a limit. And I think we were very close to hitting that when Martin O'Neill played his last game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's important. Important to remember as well is that we weren't firing on all cylinders. We were getting results, but we'd be expected to get results in some of these games. Maybe Feyenoord aside. Sean, we are at time, and I appreciate it's really late for you guys, so I won't keep you guys hanging on. But last word to you. What does the manager have to do to get through this now, to get through these next few fixtures and get to January? Because a lot of people are saying he may not make January. So what does he have to do, in your opinion?
It sounds fast. I hope it win games. We've done Dundee United first. It's like the whole thing's got Paul Le Guen vibes to me. I know a lot of people are talking like John Barnes and Russell Martin, but yeah, it feels Paul Le Guen to me. Like this guy has obviously done really well somewhere else, and he's coming in like, yep, this is going to work here, and anyone that disagrees, like, big red flag for me will be if we find that Callum McGregor gets put at left wing back, and whoever. Austin Trusty gets made captain, or whatever that the whole Paul Le Guen thing was, where he was just trying to get people to listen to him. I'm worried. I'm concerned, but start winning games, and then that's how it turns around. I just, and it's not like even if he does make it to the 1st of January, it's not going to be White Knight riding in on the 1st of January. There's not going to be 6 players coming in on a bus to make things better for him. Sorry. I'll stop there because I could get very ranty at this point.
It can, and I'm sure it will over the next few days. As Paul John and the team try and break down exactly what went wrong there. Look, really appreciate everybody coming on. Apologies, couldn't bring any more comments up this time, and we do get the strength of feeling. We've got to try and break it down as analytically as possible. If we were to say what we actually think, that probably we'd be beeping ourselves out of the conversation. But thank you. It's nearly 7,000 on the chat for a Sunday evening game. Cup final, it did not go our way. Congratulations to St Mirren, but I think big questions to be asked of our club, of our personnel, certainly of our hierarchy. And we'll do our best to ask those hard questions on here and get your thoughts. But really appreciate both Sean and Liam, who, despite what people say, did not leave the game 10 minutes early to get back to their respective houses to comment on this. That would be very, very challenging.
Unless I get walk drive.
It's 40 degrees here today. It could not be more different.
Oh, yep. So don't rub it in. But really appreciate it. I'm not going to tell you what it's like here, but it's cold. That's why I've got the Nancy jumper on. But thanks everyone for tuning in. This has been a Celtic State of Mind. Hope everybody enjoys what's left of the weekend, and we will catch up with you during the week. In the meantime, all the best. Take care.